Computer. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Pat Carrero. I'm a learning specialist and I own Center for Learning Enhancement, which is a whole child approach to learning and attention problems. And it's solution oriented through a process called learning therapy. And I have with me today Gina Pino, who is a mom, and her son Nick was a former student of mine. Nick was in second grade at age 7 when he first came to me, and he is now a budding teenager at the age of 13 in 8th grade. And bless you in that new arena of your life, Gina. Yes. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience with me and the learning process which I provide. So I'm going to start off with asking you, what was Nick like preschool age as a little guy, you know, working up to kindergarten and then into grade school?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of information, but I know you have a lot of awesome insights for parents in general about you know, the red flags that all of us need to take a look at, and that they don't just mean that your child is a behavior problem or or ADHD. You know, that's, you know, we'll get into that more, but that there are a lot of pieces that can be addressed and healed and remediated to make a difference in your child's life. So absolutely. I will let you start with, tell us about Nick. Okay. And his early years.
Yeah, well, right off the bat, when he was born, there were issues right from the start. He had a really hard time soothing himself. And I was nursing at the time, and he really didn't have a sense of feeling full. You know, that was confused for him. So as a result, he became a really large baby, you know, and from that, he had a difficult time sitting and maintaining balance. And we noticed some other things too. He had a challenging time when he was about 3 months. You know, most babies easily take an object and move it between their hands. He couldn't do that. He just had a hard time with most motor, motor skills. Walking took a whole lot longer than we expected. He was almost 2 years old, actually, before he started to walk. And then all of the other milestones were hit at much later dates than we expected. So that was, I had concerns, right from the start, but he was very smart. And in fact, he started talking before he was walking. So it was really confusing, to us. But as he started school, we just even started more, seeing some more things that were concerning. And as a mother, too, when they start preschool, you want to sit with them, you want to read that story before bed. And that was something I never really could do because he was more active, and he couldn't sit with me and really didn't want to hear the story. He would like to look at the pictures, and we could point at the pictures and talk about, oh, this is a brown bear and the red bird and all of that. But he couldn't sustain for the language of the story, even though he was such a great talker, at the time. And he had some sensory things. He always wanted to be in small spaces and hide and be behind things, and it made him feel safe and comfortable, so it wasn't typical, the typical experiences that most parents have, taking their kids out to the zoo and Jamboree and all those play dates and all those things. We probably couldn't do any of them. And I had a bright child. That could go up to someone in Target and start talking about a toy to them. But it was like those other things that, we just couldn't do. And we just didn't know why.
So then when he got into school, what was his experience in, say, first grade?
Yeah.
Kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah, kindergarten, we really just noticed some fine motor skills that were really delayed. And I had big concerns because he had a hard time with scissors, and coloring and writing was a really, it was very labored for him. You know, just to color in a little turtle took 45 minutes for him. And writing, he could barely hold the pencil, and the pressure on he just really couldn't do it, and he struggled with it. So I asked at that time if he could be looked at for occupational therapy. So my background was working with children with autism, so I was familiar with services that the school could provide. And basically I was told that that really wasn't an option for him, and that he was just developing more slowly in those areas, but they felt that he was okay in kindergarten. It was just a shorter amount of time, and it was more open. The experience was more open, there was more choice, and he could kind of, I guess, his issues or concerns that I have really could have been hidden, you know, because when you're playing with blocks and things, it's hard to see. When he got to first grade, that was a totally different story. And it was like I had an angel child in kindergarten, and then I had this like other child in first grade. And the conference in November, beginning of the year, I had shared, do you think he needs to repeat? Do you think he's just immature? Does he need more time? And it was no, that he has such an attention problem. And this attention problem was preventing him from learning. And that was really the direction that the school was going. And I asked at that time for him to be looked at from the child study team. And I was just redirected actually at that time, you know, that they're looking at this, they're going to give him more time. We're going to have a reading teacher look at his reading, because he really couldn't read. And one night I remember it was so sad because the books were called I Can Read at the top. It was a series by Scholastic, and he took the book and he threw it across the room, and he said, I don't know why they call these books I Can Read, because I can't read them. And he even bit his father actually one night too, trying to get through one of those books. And it was just very, you know, alarming. So that kind of went through first grade until I guess the end of first grade. I was bringing up again, my child has problems, and I also had some issues with the reading curriculum at the time because he couldn't do it, you know, and I was in a conference with the teacher, I thought, but I was really presented with a panel of professionals. So it really became just a scenario of them defending their reading program. And I really wanted some answers for my child, and I really wanted to have his needs met. So second grade was much the same. He started with a teacher that was on maternity leave. So we had a brand new teacher that worked with him with his, you know, phonics and decoding. But he could decode, but he really couldn't encode. You know, it was so hard. Spelling, yeah.
He couldn't spell. Okay.
No, at all.
Either.
No, and he had no comprehension of what he was reading. So his word calling really at the time, and he wasn't self-correcting when he was reading. So sometimes like if they read a word and then they know that they read it wrong, they'll read it. He couldn't do that. You know, so he was really struggling again, and that's when I decided I needed some more help. I knew that the fine motor issues were still there. I knew he had some sensory issues. He had tactile issues. He had to wear special socks. You know, the string was in the socks, all those things. So, you know, and he had a hard time with socialization too. He had a hard time with his body and space, and he just then, because he was so, you know, overwhelmed with all of that, he couldn't make friends. So he had no friends, and the playground attendants were actually coming to me concerned, saying that he just walks around the edge of the playground and he doesn't really play with anyone. So that's, you know, it was really sad. So that's why I sought you out, actually.
Okay, so he was in second grade at that point. You know, basically you have said what led you to me. And so then what was your experience with with me and with the Learning Center,
Okay.
that whole process.
Yeah, well, I was thrilled that you provided just such an extensive evaluation of him and the different parts that you looked at. I really wanted that. Like, I really wanted more than what the school was looking at when they were assessing Nicholas. And I really felt that the assessment that you created with the various parts really looked at Nicholas like 360 degrees. You know, you really saw the issues he had with auditory processing, how he was moving his body in space, how he was seeing and how that was affecting his writing. You know, you looked at all of those parts and how they integrated together, as well as IQ and all those other things. So that just made me feel secure that I would have a document that I could bring to the school to say, okay, this is what we found, can you help me? But after the evaluation, you explained what learning therapy was. And really, after the evaluation, I could see all the amazing skills that Nicholas did have. In fact, in many areas, he was gifted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, which you know, and how those holes could be filled with the various therapies, and they were therapies that he would find fun and enjoyable, you know. So I said, okay, you know, I really felt like it was an answered prayer, and it was, you know, there was no question at that time that that was, you know, what we had to do for Nicholas. And I mean, I am so grateful that that we chose to go through and to learning therapy.
So talk about the learning therapy a little bit, what that process entailed for you.
For us, yeah.
Yeah, what you had to do.
Yeah, well, for Nicholas, he required the listening program and the learning ears at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to listen to the music on a schedule, and that really was, we saw a difference immediately with the introduction of the listening program.
So that was the home training piece.
Yes, he did that at home.
Okay. And then what did you do in terms of coming to the office for training?
Okay, so we did
Talk about that.
And then in the office for training, he did a movement program. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it was like the movement program, and he would come home and he would do the movements together, so he could like integrate, because he couldn't cross midline, so he couldn't take one hand, and you know, so he couldn't ride a bike because he couldn't do that, and he couldn't tie his shoes because he did that. So once he started working with you and that, all of a sudden he could ride a bike. I mean, he just got on the bike and rode it, you know, and then he could tie his shoes. In fact, I remember in 3rd grade, he was the only one who couldn't tie his shoes, you know, because like you did that work with him. And then he did the learning ears. Was it the learning ears program?
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And that was something that we could do together, and it really improved his spelling too.
That's awesome.
And because it was just small activities every day to do, and it was really structured, he felt that he had mastered something, you know, and that he was doing well. He could see his own growth, and he felt super successful, because in school he felt dumb.
That's a shame.
He felt like he wasn't smart, and it really wasn't until all of this integrated and we finished the program, because 4th grade was a big mess too. He was doing what he needed to do, but the teacher couldn't, you know, he still just needed like a little more, because he lost 3 years of education, kindergarten, 1st grade, all of 2nd grade, and then half of 3rd grade. You know, he was still working on his program, but the school really wasn't giving him anything because he had lost so much. So yeah, it was a shame. So the piece with you was most successful. Number one, because he felt successful and he learned that he was smart, you know, and that he can do these things. And he was just learning them differently, and he had to have strategies to help him.
Yeah.
So that made all the difference.
So what were so you talked just then a little bit about the results. So going a few years now forward, he's now in 8th grade. and tell me what he is like in school, what his experiences academically, socially, with homework.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, if someone could say your 13-year-old comes home and does his homework and stays in sometimes at recess with his buddies to get everything done. I mean, that's what Nick does. His teachers last year would tell me, we give him passes all the time. He and his buddies, they go to the library and then they get their homework done. So he is very, I guess, what is that, student conscious, study conscious, or whatever. So when he has tests, Mom, can you go over my notes with me? He loves doing schoolwork. It was such a surprise, but his favorite subject, he'll tell you, is math and science, but it's really social studies. He loves to learn about the different cultures. He loves to learn about, it's amazing. And his last year, he had the highest average in the 7th grade for science and social studies.
Very good.
He's on the honor roll since 6th grade. So
Okay.
6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, honor roll. And 9th grade, we haven't got that first report card yet, but his teachers that work with him shared some really positive things when I've spoken with them. So we're definitely on that track for this year. And he is on the school news team. So at the end of the day, he reads the news to the whole middle school. And he goes on, I think, 3 times a week. And the other times he produces. So he's able to do the computer piece where he's, directing everything.
Wow.
So he loves that. And he also, I forgot to say this is something special. It's like a mom that wants to share something good about her.
No, that's important.
Yeah. When he was in 5th grade, he created a program, an outreach program for his 5th grade class in his language arts, where they read a story about some cows that they were doing like a art sculptures and placing them all around Spain, and he wanted to do it in school. So he, worked with his teacher creating this program where their symbol was the dinosaur, and they went to all the classrooms and he taught the classes how to make these dinosaurs. They wrote down the steps on how to do it and he had to share it. And then he presented this. He worked with his teacher because I guess she wasn't familiar with PowerPoint, and he helped her create a PowerPoint presentation and led it at the board meeting, at the end of the year when he was in 5th grade, like a pro. In fact, I was there. I was so proud of him, actually. One of the board members, went over to him afterwards and said, "Way to run the show, kid," and so he has a lot of confidence. He has a lot of direction. He's very organized now. And he really has read to learn. He's learned to read, and now he can learn so much more because of that. I just can't tell you how grateful I am for the learning therapy and what a difference it made. I feel if we didn't make that choice, he would not be who he is today. And I actually like my teenage child. Like, of course, mothers love their kids.
Yeah.
I really like him, and I like time with him, because he's in his power.
Yeah.
He can learn. He's, he can share who he is.
He's functioning at his potential. Now, if somebody had said to you in 2nd grade, when he was in 2nd grade, that this would be Nicholas,
oh no,
what would you have thought?
Oh no,
I hope so, but
no. In fact, in 2nd grade, towards the end of 2nd grade, he was a nightmare, like right before we started with you. And I remember we were going to my cousin's house in Long Island, and everyone wants to go see Aunt Mimi. She greets you with all these gifts and everything, and he didn't want to go, and he was throwing tantrums, and it was just because school was so stressful. He just didn't want his weekend to be structured. He just wanted it to just be a break. And that's really what that was about. But most things were like that. He needed some kind of control. And that was so hard. Once we started with you, though, things, settled down.
So it really was overflowing into all areas of his life, and with his other relationships, with even the days off that, And one statement you had made, which I think really brings this all together beautifully, summarizes what you've been sharing, is that you said your son went from being a teacher's pest to a
Yes.
teacher's pet. And I thought that was just, very unique and pretty funny also.
Yeah, well, it's true, because in fourth grade, when a teacher says to you that your child is basically an oddball,
Oh,
she
wow.
told me he's an oddball, and
That's a shame.
I'm not
Yeah.
mentioning the teacher's name, and she, I sent her a lot of love, but, to hear that your child is weird and that your child should be with a certain principal because he accepts kids,
Okay.
and all, like that.
Wow.
So he was, her pest. And then to, last year, where his homeroom teacher was like, oh, my Nick Pino, I love my Nick Pino. Oh, that's my Nick Pino.
That's
Like,
nice.
to have the teachers gush over your child,
That's, yes.
so like there was disgust, and then now I have gushing, and you want that. You want
Absolutely. You want that no matter who they are, but it's also lovely to see, that they're seeing him at his best. And I congratulate you on being open-minded and not taking no for an answer, or, and trusting your gut in terms of there's got to be something out there. I know this is a bright young man, a bright child, and just moving forward, looking for the resources and the solutions, and then just doing the work that needs to be done.
That's it.
To make a difference for Nicholas, and that's all that you've done your job great as a mom, that's for sure. So, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, everyone knows who their child is in their heart. You do. You know who your child is, and you know what their potential is. As a mother, you can't help it. You feel it because your heart is that, they're in your heart. So you know it. And if you feel that, and if you know that you need to look for something different, your heart is telling you to do it. Go find it, and just ask, what is my next step? Who can, because I did that. I said, what is my next step, and who can I turn to? And then I received your card at my church. So that, you'll get the next step that you need to for your child. And maybe it's the learning therapy. Maybe it's, the Center for Learning Enhancement. That's what it was for me. So whatever it is, act on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Gina, for your time and for your sharing, and congratulations and the best of everything for you and Nicholas and your family. And
Thank you.
so I think, we spent a lovely amount of time, and what I'd just like to say, if you have any questions to my audience, we thank you for, being here to listen to, and hopefully you have some questions. You can contact me, Mary Pat, at centerforlearningenhancement.com. And, any comments, any questions you might have for Gina, and I will pass them on to her, and we'll get you your answers. But again, thank you for joining us, and have a great day. And I'm here. I have a Facebook page, Center for Learning Enhancement, and I also have a website, www.centerforlearningenhancement.com. So, I'm here for you. So take care. Have a great day. Thanks again, Gina. Have a lovely day.
You too.
All right. Bye.